I remember coming home and telling my wife, I'm going to quit. What are you talking about? What are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to go to work for my... What do you mean? You don't know anything about importing, about anything? People would say to me, you know, René Rofé sounds like a French designer. They didn't know that I was a kid from Egypt. So I drew it on a napkin. We showed it to her. She loved it. She gave us an order. The fear of failure is what kept me going. If someone had told me that I was going to end up peddling panties, I would have thought they were crazy. My advice to young people would be to...
My guest today is René Rofé. He's the founder of René Rofé Lingerie. I know, who could have guessed? René's products can be found in Macy's, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, Victoria's Secret, and they also sell direct-to-consumer on their website. Guys, this was a fun episode. He's a colorful character, that's for sure, which made for a great conversation. Here are some of the highlights. He told us about how after he got an order from Macy's, he literally ticketed every single item in his living room with his wife and kids. He told the story of how a sketch on a napkin of a Prada design led to a multi-million-dollar relationship with Victoria's Secret, and he gave us the blueprint he used to expand from selling to discount stores to some of the biggest retailers in the country. Oh, and before we start, I'm Victor Braca, and Momentum is where I dive deep into the stories behind business success. But enough about me. Let's get into the episode. This episode is sponsored by the Hedaya Capital Group. René Rofé, welcome to Momentum.
Thank you.
I want to ask you for my first question, how did you grow up? I know you grew up in Egypt. Did you grow up with money?
No, in Egypt we were fairly well-to-do, but we left Egypt in January of 1957.
How old were you?
And I was 6.5. So when we left, we were not able to take any money or anything with us, and we went to France and stayed there for 1.5 years, and we came to the United States in September of 1958. I was 8 years old.
What did things look like for you at that time? Like, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new life. It's totally different from everything you grew up.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that as far as my growing up in Egypt, I have the memories of a 6-year-old. So, those are not extensive. And many of the memories I have are from talking with my parents and seeing photographs. I do have some very specific memories, but it was leaving Egypt was very exciting. We left January 2nd, 1957, and what I recall is having all new clothes. Obviously, it was warm in Egypt. We never wore long pants. And all of a sudden, we had wool pants and sweaters. And we flew from Cairo to Vienna. And we stayed in Vienna overnight. And then took another flight to France. And when we got to France, we actually lived in Vichy. And it was the first time I had seen snow. And it was, as a kid, it was very, very exciting. I didn't, obviously, I wasn't aware of any of the politics that led to our leaving Egypt. And it was, just, I guess it was an exciting time for a little boy.
Right. I mean, I want to zoom in on, you didn't have wool pants, you were seeing snow for the first time. What are some of the other things that draw the contrast between growing up in Egypt and moving to the new world, so to speak, America and the West?
Well, I think that it was, for me as a kid, I wasn't aware of all the things my parents were going through. But when you think about it, my father was only 33, and my mother was 31, and for them, traveling with 3 little kids, it must have been a very difficult time. And we went from having a nice big apartment in Egypt, and a villa. My grandfather had a beautiful villa, to a small apartment in Brooklyn. Didn't really know anyone. We sort of, my parents were friendly with some of the other Egyptians who had come, and it was just an exciting time, I guess. We first lived in a hotel in Manhattan, Hotel Embassy, and I went to school for a couple of months in Manhattan. I recall coming home, saying some Spanish words. It was it was in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, and me coming home and saying "mira, mira este," and not knowing whether that was English or Spanish or what, and but we caught on very quickly. We learned as little kids. We learned English very quickly. I would say probably by after 6 months and watching TV and cartoons, we picked it up, and it was for me it was an exciting time. I didn't feel like there was anything different, other than we were not. I suppose we didn't have all the luxuries. We didn't have all the, all the things that we had in Egypt. We had a very nice life. People don't realize that Egypt, I grew up in Alexandria, was a very cosmopolitan city, and most of the Jews spoke 4 or 5 languages, as did my parents. And coming here was a little bit, it was very difficult for my parents, having to start all over again.
Like you said, traveling with 3 young kids, it must be so difficult. And you were just 6, 7, 8 years old. You didn't realize what they were going through. And so tell me a little bit about like getting to America. You learned English pretty quickly, which was good. I would say, like, if you were even like 5, 6 years older, you would have struggled a little bit more to learn English. It was good that you moved at that young age, because you were able to pick up the language quickly.
Yeah.
Did you do well in school?
Yes, I was a good student. I did well in school. I'm an original boat. I still have the tickets that my father had purchased for our family.
Some boats are planes. You guys are real boats.
We're real boats. Well, now the boats are, they're no longer boats, they're yachts. And many of them have done very well in this country. But we came by boat, and as I said, we first lived in a hotel for a couple of months in Manhattan, and then we moved to Brooklyn. I wasn't really aware of the whole Syrian community. I didn't realize it, other than my father was, a couple of years after we arrived, my father was very heavily involved in Achiezer congregation. His parents, my father was born in Egypt. His parents are from Damascus, so we were Shami. And on his side, on my mother's side, where her parents are from Aleppo and Morocco. So anyway, you asked if I was a good student. I came here, I was in 3rd grade, and in the 6th grade, I made what was called the SP. At the time, the SP was it was a special program for kids in 6th grade. They had the option of either skipping 7th grade or taking an enriched curriculum, and my parents thought it would be better if I didn't skip a grade, so I took the enriched curriculum and ended up going to Cunningham Junior High School on Avenue S and East 17th Street, and where I made some friends that they're still friends of mine to this day. And from Cunningham, I went to Lincoln High School. I did well in school, and came time to go to college, and I had done well in math and science, and went to see my grade advisor, and he said, "Oh, engineer, you should go to engineering school." I had no idea what an engineer did, and I ended up going to engineering school, and I guess I liked it. It was very difficult, but I stayed, and I got my master's also
Really?
in engineering.
Wow, so you really pursued that.
I think it was the easiest thing for me to do.
Right.
You know, I had graduated, and there was a 5-year course where you could get your master's, and so that's what I did. And then in 1973, I got my master's, and I went to work for an engineering firm in Manhattan.
Guys, I want you to be a part of the Momentum Army. The Momentum Army is our frontline force that holds up this entire podcast. Now, you might be wondering, how do I enlist in this Momentum Army? Guys, it's very simple. Share this episode with 3 people right now. Before you continue watching, don't skip this. 3 people is all I ask. I don't want any ads for Momentum, and the main way the podcast grows is through word of mouth. So be sure to enlist in the Momentum Army by sharing this episode with 3 friends. Let's get back to the episode. At this point, I'm assuming you didn't always know that you wanted to get into the apparel industry?
I had no idea.
No.
If someone had told me that I was going to end up peddling panties, I would have thought they were crazy.
It's a good way to put it. So tell me a little bit. So you were telling me you worked at an engineering firm just out of college, or after you
Yes.
got your master's, and so you were really pursuing that track. I mean, what did you see for yourself at that point? Did you have a vision for your life? Am I going to start a company? Am I going to work for a large industrial firm?
At that point, I thought that maybe I would, get together with a couple of my college friends and perhaps start an engineering firm. That was my thinking at the time.
Right. So you were always entrepreneurial. Did you always want to do your own thing?
I think I always wanted to do my own thing. Yes.
I think it's part of like the immigrant mentality. It's like you can't rely on anybody else for your parnasa, to feed your family. Really, you have to, be your own boss. And I see that as a common theme among a lot of immigrants, is that they're always entrepreneurial.
Well, I'm not sure that I was so entrepreneurial at the time. It seems like I just did the. It just seems like my career developed. I went to engineering school. I worked for an engineering firm, and then I was there for only about a little over a year, and then I took a job for a think tank in Bedford, Massachusetts, called the MITRE Corporation, where we were doing work for in environmental engineering. I was there for 3 years, but during the second year, they sent me to Hawaii to work on a project. So I was in Honolulu for about 10 months, working on a waste disposal project. And at the time, I was working with an investment bank from New York. They were going to issue the bonds to finance the cost of the facility that I was involved in engineering. And after the project was finished, they came to me and they said, "Hey, how would you like to come and work for us?" And I said, "Work for you? I don't know anything about finance." They said, "Nah, we've seen you. You can sell, and if you can sell, you can come and you'll do all right." I ended up coming back to New York, and I went to work for an old white shoe investment banking firm. I think I was the only Jew in the firm. It was called White Weldon Company, and I was working in financing waste disposal facilities, energy recovery, resource recovery, burning solid waste to generate steam and to make electricity. And I liked the job I was doing. it was a big change from engineering in the sense that the bankers were, they got a lot of respect.
Right.
And, here I was a young guy, I was 27 years old, and all of a sudden I'm flying all over the country. All of our clients were municipalities or public agencies. And, we were treated very, very nicely. The work was very long. I remember spending a lot of time, a lot of nights at the financial printers. In those days, we used to print the what they call the red herrings, the prospectuses, and so we'd spend a lot of time going over it. And I enjoyed everything I did. And then a few years later, I was in investment banking for about 4.5 years.
Before we go into that, I want to ask you one question. When you were at White Weldon Company, I mean, so how old were you at that point?
I was 27.
You were 27, and like, tell me about the hustle, the grind, because I'm planning on going into finance. I'm going to be studying that in college, and what I hear at least about the investment banks is you're working overnight, and you briefly mentioned, there were many nights that you worked in the office, but can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, it was an exciting time. We were financing. I was working on financing multi-million-dollar large projects. The truth of the matter is that the lawyers did all the work. The lawyers did all the work. We did the financial projections and did the feasibility studies. But it was really an exciting time in terms of being able to be part of something real. That what you were doing, that in a few years there was going to be a big plant, processing waste, and so it was.
You were part of that.
It was, I was happy to be part of it. It did put I was married by the time, actually I got married when I was 22 years old.
Oh, wow.
My first wife. And so, there were many nights I came home very late. We had to put in a lot of hours. The younger guys are always the grunts. And if you're going into finance, you should expect to become a grunt for at least a few years.
Yep. That's the role. The junior analyst, right?
That's what happens. But it was rewarding. It was rewarding, and I felt good about it. But I did see friends of mine who hadn't gone to college or hadn't gone to graduate school, and they were starting to make money. And I was wondering, when am I going to start? When am I going to start to make money? And after about 4 years, my father had started a company in 1962. He was involved in. He imported disposable paper and plastic products, primarily toothpicks, coffee stirrers, skewers, things like that. He had a partner. His partner had died a couple of years earlier, and I decided I was going to leave my job and go to work with my father. I remember coming home and telling my wife, "I'm going to quit." "What do you mean you're going to quit? What are you talking about? What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go to work for my father." "What do you mean? You don't know anything about importing, about anything?" Anyway. I ended up resigning in December of, I guess it was December of 1978 maybe, or 77. And I went to work for my father.
Wow.
I was working for him for about 3 weeks when an older relative who was retired, he called my father and he said, "I'm retired, but I'm really bored. I want to do something. I think I want to import something." And my father said to him, hey, you know, my son just left his job. Maybe you want to do something with him.
So you go into the family business.
So I went into the family business with my father.
3 months later.
And then a few weeks later.
3 weeks later, wow.
A few weeks later, I'm here with this older relative, a wonderful man. He was a mentor. And we said we're going to import stuff. And you know, we're going to go around and sell it.
I think what's important is that you were starting your own business at that point, you know? Like it was something, I think there's something inside of you throughout your entire childhood, adolescent life, and going into college and working at the engineering firm and then the investment bank. You had the entrepreneurial drive. I'm sure they were paying you well at that investment bank.
Well, you know, when I was growing up, when I was in college, our goal was to earn $30,000 by the time you're 30. That was the goal.
Crazy.
I've just celebrated my 75th birthday, so I'm 75 years old, and you know, so at the time, you know, that was the goal. If you were making $30,000 before you were 30, you were doing really well. You know, I was earning about $30,000, and I thought everything was great, but I didn't like the idea of you know, reporting to somebody. And so when I went into my business with this older relative, it was a lot of freedom, but it was very, very challenging. I didn't know anything about importing, about selling, about product, and here I was, you know, with a mentor taking me around Brooklyn to see the Syrian discount stores, look around in the stores, see what kind of goods we could import and sell. And so we took a trip to Hong Kong, and we went to Hong Kong, and we started buying different items that we could sell to the Syrian stores.
It's so funny. You started completely from scratch.
Yeah, so we bought umbrellas. First we went to Taiwan. We bought umbrellas in Taiwan. Then we bought socks in Korea, and underwear in Hong Kong. China wasn't quite open yet. And, you know, we saw that, you know, if it was raining, they'd call you for umbrellas. Otherwise, they didn't call you. But they always needed underwear. And a few years after being in partnership with this relative, his son came into the business, and we built up a bit. We were doing a couple of $1 million in sales, and but we weren't getting along, and we split up. And in 1986, I started my own company, International Intimates, which is still in operation.
Right.
And at the time, I decided, you know, I was going to focus on women's underwear. Didn't have a lot of money, and underwear, panties was something that people needed every day, women needed every day, and it was a relatively easy area to get into. With a little bit of money, you could buy a lot of goods.
Sure.
And there was a lot of manufacturing capacity, and so you know, I still didn't know anything about anything, but at the time, Calvin Klein had gone into business, had started an underwear business in the early 80s, a few years before me. And, you know, at the time, there wasn't much fashion in ladies' underwear. It was basic colors, white, black, and nude. And you know, and I had an idea that you know, maybe we can make fashionable panties at a price. And so that's what I did.
How did you set yourself apart as this nobody 31-year-old who's importing? Like, were there many other ladies wear brands at the time, or were you really like one of the first?
No, I wasn't really a ladies wear brand. I was just really selling panties, and I was really focused on selling the discount stores.
Right, you were very niche, very...
Yeah, people that, mostly Syrians who owned discount stores that I could go and see, and they were very helpful. Thank God the community is so helpful to each other.
It's true.
And so, they gave me a boost. They gave me the confidence to continue. And so I would walk from store to store. I needed a label. And people would say to me, René Rofé sounds like a French designer. They didn't know that I was a kid from Egypt. Said, wow, it sounds like a French designer. And on one of my trips my early trips to Hong Kong, I got together with an artist, and I said, I need to make a hang tag. She said, well, why don't you sign your name a few times, and we'll see what we can do. And so that's where the René Rofé brand was born.
That's great.
And so I started putting René Rofé on everything I did. Whether it was large briefs or little thongs or whatever I did, it said René Rofé, and
so that was how you built up the brand, essentially.
Yes, everything we made had René Rofé on it. And after a couple of years, I expanded into other areas, into ladies' bras, and from panties to bras, and then sleepwear, and mostly intimate apparel.
Right.
Is what I did. We didn't do anything in boys or men's. It was all ladies products.
What was it like starting an apparel business before social media, before e-commerce, before the whole landscape of the world? By now has changed, and I'm sure you had to pivot many times, which we'll talk about. But what was it like back then, and how did you set yourself apart to try to get into those big retailers?
Well, what I did really was I copied other what I thought at the time were successful Syrians who were in the business, and there were a few guys who were established in underwear, in women's underwear, and basically I tried to copy what they were doing, the types of things they were doing, but putting a little bit of a twist, either in adding prints. At the time, women didn't have printed underwear, printed panties. Everybody was wearing solid colors basics, and so that's the kind of thing that I did. Is I tried to make things a little bit differently than they did, but certainly I used them as inspiration for everything that I did.
Hedaya Capital Group is a trusted business advisor helping entrepreneurs unlock the growth potential of their businesses with tailored accounts receivable factoring and working capital solutions. They're a family-owned, approachable team who listen and provide solutions while sharing their business experience and knowledge to help protect clients' interests. They work from a core of old world values where ethics and integrity have meaning, and new world thinking where speed and flexibility ensure success. And the result is that clients feel confident taking advantage of growth opportunities, knowing they have the liquidity and scalability they need, as well as a long-term partner looking out for them and helping them grow. Since 2003, their expertise and patient approach to capital have helped companies improve cash flow, protect assets, and scale their companies. Visit hedayacapital.com, that's Hedaya capital.com, or email info@hedayacapital.com to learn more. Back to the episode. And tell me, how did you grow your business? How did you grow the company?
I grew my business by I tell you, it was just persistence. It was really persistence. It was a struggle. It was a big struggle, and to this day, I tell my younger son, I tell him that it was fear of failure that drove me to work. the idea that I would collapse and not be able to succeed kept me going. And so I started calling all kinds of retailers. Certainly I didn't start with any of the large retailers. I started with relatively smaller retailers. Just called, and they gave me an opportunity, and I sold my goods. The most difficult thing was, at the time, when you think about it, finding a factory today is very easy. Today you can go online and you can find factories all over the world. In those days, it wasn't so easy. You had to actually travel and go and find and look, and it was. I've always liked to travel, and it was. I always viewed my whole life as an adventure. So I ended up traveling to places that most people didn't go to, and so I was an early importer from countries such as Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Mauritius, places that people didn't go to. But I went there because I like the travel, and I always was interested in different cultures. And it's to this day, I'm still doing business with many of the people
Really?
that I started.
Wow, I mean, you tapped into that potential that most people, that really nobody was tapped into yet.
Yeah, I think, yes. I mean, at the time, people were importing either from the Caribbean basin, or primarily from Hong Kong. People were not venturing to other places. I started doing business in Sri Lanka in 1984, in Bangladesh in 1987, and we were one of the firsts. But during my travels, I ran into people who worked for very large firms, and I got to know some of them, and I got to see what they were doing. And again, I used them as inspiration for what I should be doing.
Great. I love it. I just love like the way you look at business is not like it's kind of the whole theme of the show if you think about it, is success is very attainable, and you don't need to invent the next breakthrough technology in order to be successful, right? You don't need to be Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. If you want to be the richest man in the world, then that's what you need to do, right? But if you want to see success in your life and have a life that you're happy with, you can follow in the footsteps of the people who paved the way, right? And you took inspiration from the people who were ahead of you in business. Maybe it was 5 years, maybe it was 20 years ahead of you in business, right? But you said, hey, listen, what they did, it worked out for them. Let me do the same thing, right? And I think it's a really, one of the goals of this podcast is to show people, hey, listen, this is what successful people have done. Let me just copy it, right? Let me just do what they did. So I love how that's the way you look at business. So I want to ask you, you told me about growing your business. Can you tell me about a failure that you made? It could be in the early years, or it could be in the more recent history that really shaped the way you look at business, or maybe that you still haven't recovered from.
Well, I mean, I've had many failures along the way. Is there any one particular thing? I really can't, off the top of my head, I can't pinpoint one particular thing.
Right.
But as I said earlier, it was a struggle. It was a big struggle, and the fear of failure is what kept me going. I made mistakes in buying goods. I made mistakes in not pursuing other areas. I made mistakes in being too dependent on certain factories. But failure is a part of success.
Right.
People learn from their failures, hopefully, and try not to repeat them. And I guess I was lucky, and but I can't think of any particular area that was catastrophic. At one time, I did sell the big box, Walmart, Target, Kohl's. At one time, I sold all of them. I don't sell them anymore.
Really?
I don't sell any of them anymore.
Okay, tell me about that.
I don't sell them. It's funny because I started at the low end. Price was the way to get into the stores, especially the Syrian stores. You came in, you had a good price, they gave you a shot. So that's where I was. I was I was in the low end, and I got a break. I got a break with Macy's. I got a break with Macy's in the early '90s. Out of the blue, we called up Macy's and had a nice buyer. He came in, he liked my goods, and he gave me an order. And now I said, what? Oh, he wants the goods ticketed. He wants the price tickets. What am I going to do? And believe it or not, I would bring the cartons of merchandise home, and me and my wife, and I had 2 children with my first wife, and they were little kids, and we would sit around the living room, and believe it or not, we would put tickets. I bought guns, and we would ticket the merchandise.
When somebody's shopping in Macy's, they don't realize that
no, they didn't.
A man or his wife and his 2 kids ticketed them themselves.
So we we did that, and then as we grew, what happened is it's very difficult when you're in the low end to go up. Is very hard. It's much easier when you're up here to start selling to the lower price stores. But I caught a break in the early '90s, in the early aughts, around 2001, 2002. I started selling Victoria's Secret. Total fluke. I had hired. I was making merchandise at the time for Maidenform. Maidenform was making goods for Victoria's Secret, but I wasn't making goods that were intended for Victoria's Secret. I was just making goods for Maidenform. And one day I got a call from Maidenform and said, hey, their main supplier who is doing business for them, who's making goods for Victoria's Secret, is no longer making the goods, and would I be able to quote them a price? Would I be able? I flew out, so I made merchandise. I made bras. And the bras did well, and next thing I know, I contacted Victoria's Secret myself. I had a person. She's still with me. And she was the liaison contact. We went out to Columbus, Ohio, and we brought all kinds of samples. And then one of the merchandisers said, I saw something in Prada. I think it was Prada, either Prada or some very high-end brand. I saw something in Prada, and I'd like to make something. The thing she saw in Prada cost probably $400 or $500, and she wanted to make it for $8 or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, I recall drawing. She didn't have a sample. She only had one sample. She couldn't give it to me. So I drew it on a napkin. And then we went and we went to after the meeting. We went to the stores and we bought an actual sample. And we actually made a sample in New York in a Chinese workshop.
Really?
And we made a sample, and we brought it to her, and she was very, she was amazed that we were able to do it. I didn't know, I made it in New York. I didn't know where I was going to make it. But we showed it to her. She loved it. She gave us an order.
Wow.
And And then we went and we sourced it, and we've been doing business with them ever since.
That's great. And so what is your business mainly comprised
but my
of right
business,
now? Yeah.
but my business is really primarily focused on off-price. The off-price, with the exception of a few department stores, but the off-price is my biggest channel of distribution. We still do business with Victoria's Secret. And since then, we ventured out and we are sourcing from a lot of different...
What does off-price mean?
Off-price is Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Burlington,
Sure.
Ross stores, all those stores that sell, brands for less.
Right. So it's those. You're into those stores. Got it.
Yes.
Interesting. And so, I mean, like, I'm sure it was part of the progression of your business, but how did you break into those stores? It's not easy to even break into Marshalls and TJ Maxx and.
It isn't now, but price was the key. Price was the key.
It was all commoditized.
It was all, yes. It was, I started first selling TJ Maxx in 1989, and I sold them big briefs, large size women's briefs. They put them out at 99 cents right in front of the cash registers. The goods sold. I got more orders. A few years later, TJ Maxx bought Marshalls, so I started selling Marshalls. And then, I had a little bit of confidence to call some of the other stores, and that's what I did.
Love it. It's so interesting just to hear like the progression of the business, because I feel like I'm living through it. You took me into starting the business. You were nobody. You were 31 years old, international intimates, right? And fast forward to where you're taking me.
I still think of myself as a nobody, so don't put me on this. Don't put me on this level.
I'll tell you we should tell the audience when I reached out to you to ask you to be on the podcast. Rene told me nobody wants to hear me spread my ignorance. I said I disagree. I beg to differ. But I mean, I want to ask you, like, when we look at these like big fashion brands or even importers, a lot of them pivot from family owned to investor managed or to externally operated, right? Like, you kept the business family owned and family operated since its inception, and I think that's a very crucial part about how you run the business today. What went into that decision?
Firstly, my experience when I first went into business with the partner, he was a very good, the older relative was a very good partner. As I mentioned, he was a mentor, but I didn't get along really with his son. It was really my cousin. We didn't really get along in terms of our business decisions. And so when I went into my own business, I really didn't want a partner. My father had been my partner in the first business. And so when I started what happened is with the first business, I mentioned that we were doing $2 million, and I said, I have to break off. So because he was a relative, we wanted to keep the family happy. My mother was very good friends with his mother. She was her first cousin. And so what we did is we hired, I had an attorney, the same attorney that my partner had. He devised a plan that he said, okay, you want to split up with him. Okay, and so why don't you make him an offer, and he can either accept the offer or he can turn it around. So that way it'll be fair. Whatever you're willing to pay to him, whatever you're willing to pay, he should be willing to pay to you.
Interesting.
So he made this plan, and it turns out my partner, he kept the business, and then I had to start all over.
Right.
So I knew at the time that I didn't want to have a partner other than my father was a silent partner. He was running his toothpick business, which, by the way, is still in existence.
Really?
Yes, we still have that toothpick business. And So I, I knew at the time that I didn't want to have a partner. I didn't want to get any investors, and I said, we'll try and do it ourselves.
It was a good lesson to learn early on because it's clearly worked out for you, and there's so many stories of people who did bring on investors and partners, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah. Well, so it's the one thing about having a partner. It's great to have somebody to wallow in your misery and also to rejoice in your successes.
Right.
When you're alone, you've heard the expression, it's lonely at the top. It's very lonely at the top. Now, I have a lot of things are on my mind. Work never leaves me. I leave the office and I come home and I'm still thinking about it. It's always with me. Despite the fact that I'm surrounded with good people, and
For sure.
but it's difficult to be on your own. So there are many advantages to having a good partner, or to having a brother or a sister or some relative in the business. Many advantages. For me, it just turned out that I just did it on my own, and it's still lonely at the top, and I still worry about the business.
Right. Especially off hours, even off hours.
Yes, of course off hours, because when you're an importer dealing with the Far East, there's no off hours.
That's true.
They're 12 hours ahead.
Right.
So when you're sleeping, they're working, and sometimes you have to be many nights I would be on the phone till crazy hours.
Right.
To talk to the factory, but it's worked out well.
Thank God. I want to shift a bit into the advice that you might have for young people to build off of your business experience and apply that in their lives and get ahead in their careers. So the first thing I want to ask you, I guess, is what are some key traits, whether it be characteristics or soft skills or hard skills, that you think young people today must have in order to succeed?
I think that first of all, in terms of hard skills versus soft skills, hard skills are something that are acquired, that are learned. You learn them. You go to school. You learn a trade. Those are hard skills. Soft skills have to do with the interpersonal relationships, have to do with connections, have to do with being able to speak to someone and get your ideas across. So, unless a person is specializing in a particular area where he's gotten an education or he's learned on his own these hard skills, soft skills is really what you need in every endeavor. You need to know how to speak to people. In my opinion, those are the soft skills are what really contributes to your success. It goes without saying that having expertise in hard skills is indispensable. But the thing is, you need to be able to speak to people intelligently. You need to be able to get your ideas across. So I think that my advice to young people would be to network as much as they can, meet people, always be open to meeting people. If you've just entered into an industry, go to industry functions. I used to love going to industry functions. I have to admit that I don't go to industry functions anymore.
Right.
I have, some of my staff goes, but I personally don't go to them anymore. But it's very, very important to, number one, to get to know your industry, to know what other people are doing, to get to know who are your competitors. So I think that development of soft skills is very, very important, and not everybody is able to to go to college and to acquire these hard skills. But everyone can acquire soft skills.
And what I find interesting is that if we go back to if we go back in time in your story, the investment bank recruited you even when you didn't have the hard skills. You said, "I don't know anything about banking," and they said, "You're a good salesman and you know how to talk to people, and we want you." And they brought you into the company.
No matter what you have to be, you have to sell yourself in everything that you do.
Right.
You have to sell yourself. Having the skills of a salesman is something that is very, very, very important. Not everyone can come up with with something innovative or technical and today I have to admit that at the time that I went into business, it was much easier to go into business than it is today. Today, it's much more complicated. The retailers, at least in my business, retailers expect a lot more out of their suppliers than they did when I started my business. They want floor ready. They want floor ready merchandise. They want you to guarantee sales. They want you. There's a lot of things that they want today that they didn't at the time.
Right.
And so I think that that to be able to network and to get to meet and as many people as you can is a very important area.
Can you touch a little bit on giving back / getting involved in the community / nonprofits and philanthropy and activism in that sense?
My father, when we first came, he also struggled, but he was always very generous in his tzedakah. And being the first president of Achiezer on Avenue X, he always made the speeches, the fundraising speeches in French, English, and Arabic. He would to the poor. Our congregation at Avenue X, Achiezer, was mostly newly arrived immigrants, and who many of them didn't speak English. My father was quite educated, and he would make speeches, and he would quote things, and I'm sure that 90% of the people didn't even understand. But even though he was not wealthy, he was always giving. He would always be the first one to give tzedakah. And he taught us by example that this is you have to do. This is what you have to do. So from a very early age, it was instilled in us that you have to give tzedakah. My biggest involvement is in giving back was probably I served on the board of Hillel Yeshivah for about 14 years. And it was very rewarding. I would go and make speeches to all the shuls during the summer. I would make speeches and try to get the people to give. I recall my father coaxing and trying to get the money out of the people. In those days, they used tactics that are no longer accepted in the community. In those days, they were able to shame people into giving. Now this is frowned upon. People don't do that anymore.
If it works, it works.
People don't do that anymore,
right.
But somehow he was able to coax and cajole the people into opening their wallets. I got a lot of satisfaction out of going to the shuls, and this was during my second marriage. I was already much older than my contemporaries, than the people on the board of Hillel. I recall the first meeting where Sammy Saka, God bless him, he's the chairman of Hillel. He introduced me and he said, Rene, I think you know all the people on the board. I said, no, but I know most of their parents. And
There's a generation gap.
there was a generation gap, but I never felt like, maybe they felt it. I never felt like it was a generation gap. I thought only old people are 75.
Right.
I still refuse to accept it. And I won't accept it. So, that was probably, raising money for the school was probably something that I'm most proud of.
Your life is completed with what you just told me, with the chesed and the tzedakah, right? Like, yes, you have business and success, which is great monetarily and financially, but if you don't do something with the money, if you don't put it to good use and give, then really, what's the point? And I'm getting a lot of that from you.
Sometimes along the way, I would ask myself, I didn't, it's not like I had tons of money. And, people come to you and ask for tzedakah, and, it got to be nonstop. And I would say, is Hashem testing me? Is he testing me? Please, maybe stop them. But you never want them. When they stop coming, that's a problem. Better that they keep coming. But it's I get a good feeling from it. And I am, I prefer to give to struggling organizations or that don't have so many contributors, because you have organizations that are like well-oiled machines. You have a Bikur Cholim, for example, this wonderful organization. People love to give to Bikur Cholim. But I like to give to Bikur Cholim, but I would rather give to the small medical facility that's just starting out in the Negev and that is struggling, that don't have those people.
Right.
And so I don't know. I feel good. I feel good when I do things like that.
Great. Rene, I want to ask you, looking back from your whole career, it's been 35, 45 years, and you started your company 31 years old until today, and you've seen tremendous success, thank God. I want to ask you for your momentum moment, the moment where you gained the momentum, where things turned around for you. It doesn't have to be the moment where you closed that Target account or anything like that. It could be one of those, or it could be a smaller moment where you had a realization, an epiphany, a moment of introspection where you realize that you can do what you love, or you can make a living out of what you're doing, or the moment where you started to gain momentum.
I think it was probably in the mid-90s where I started to sell stores other than the Syrian discounters. And from my background in banking, in investment banking, it was always in the back of my mind that I could build up the company and then sell it. And once I was, the momentum was built by getting more and more customers and seeing that the products were accepted, and then putting my skills that I had learned in banking to work by, I hired an investment banker, a boutique investment banker, and basically together with him I wrote my prospectus to sell the company. What led me to it is I was going, unfortunately, through a divorce from my first wife, and I knew I had to do something, and so what happened is I ended up writing this prospectus with the bankers, and we got some offers. We got some offers from different companies and different investors, and I ended up selling 70% of my company.
Oh, wow.
I ended up selling it to an investment bank in Bahrain. I couldn't even travel to Bahrain because I had Israel was stamped on my passport, and I couldn't even go there. But they had an office in Connecticut, and they liked my story, and they bought 70% of my company.
Wow. Was this International Intimates?
This is International Intimates, yes. So I mentioned that I had started my business in 1986, and in 1999 I sold the company to Bahrain Investment Bank, and shortly thereafter we started doing business with Victoria's Secret, and the business grew substantially, and then around 2008, 2010, something like that, the people that bought me, Bahrain Investment Bank, filed for receivership. It's the equivalent of bankruptcy. One day I got a call from Ernst & Young, the accounting firm. I got a call from them in their Bahrain office telling me that my new owners were going bankrupt, and they were going to sell they were going to sell all their assets, including my company. I was only a 30% owner.
Sure.
I said, "What? They're going to sell? What am I going to?" And they had the right to do that in the contracts. So I ended up buying back the company.
Wow. That's so interesting.
And this is what happened.
I'm sure you bought it back for a discount. I mean, they were going.
Yes, of course, I bought it back. I bought it back for a discount, but still, it was, I went from no debt to taking on debt, and
Right.
But thank God, I mean, things worked out, and it turned out okay.
Turned out okay. Wow, Rene, thank you so much for coming, for sharing your story. I think you'd be surprised at how many people. And how much people are going to take inspiration from your story. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Amazing. All right, guys, that's a wrap on René Rofé. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Let's do some quick takeaways. 3 things from this episode that you could take into your own life. All right. Number 1, speed is key. Speed, speed, speed. René had a meeting with Victoria's Secret. He didn't wait to get them drawings and professional renderings and mock-ups of the product. He literally sketched it on a napkin, moved quickly, got them a finished sample, got the order, and he ended up beating everybody else that was trying to close that account. There should be a minimal amount of time between idea and execution. Number 2, put yourself in a position that motivates you. René mentioned repeatedly that fear of failure is what drove him to succeed. So it's up to people like you and I to discover what will drive us to succeed. For some people, it's public accountability, like telling your friends about a goal and making it public. For other people, it's financial accountability, financial pressure, quitting the safety net job so that you have to make something work. Whatever it is, whatever it might be for you, engineer your environment so that pressure works for you, not against you. And third, soft skills beat hard skills every day of the week. I mean, think about it. The investment bank called René up. They wanted to hire him even though he knew nothing about finance because he was a good salesman. He's personable. He knows how to interact with people, and that's the key. Hard skills, you could learn them, and you should learn them, and you should know them. But soft skills are what set you apart. Guys, if you made it this far, comment unstoppable down below so I know you made it till the end. Join the secret club of viewers who make it till the end of the episode. And of course, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this episode, you're going to love my conversation with June Abaxis. She's the founder of Junies, and growing up, she never really fit in. I mean, dyslexia, ADHD, learning disabilities, class clown, so much so that her principal told her she would never amount to anything. But against all odds, she founded a clothing brand that has retail locations around the world and does millions of dollars in sales. Check it out, guys, by searching Momentum June Abaxis on any platform or by clicking the link in the show notes. And that wraps it up, guys. Thank you again to the Hedaya Capital Group for sponsoring this episode. Check them out at hedayacapital.com, and I'll see you next time.